Eric.
Hello.
How are we doing, Eric?
Yeah, it's going well. How are you doing?
Very good, thank you. Thank you for joining us. You're our last guest of the day. We've had a lot of great guests. We're super excited for this one. But before we jump into it, like we've done our research, we know what it is that you guys do. But could you give us just like the 1 minute pitch into Encord?
Sure. Thanks for having me. I'm Eric, one of the co-founders and CEO of Encord. Encord is a data development platform. So we work with AI teams in every use case and vertical in healthcare, retail, agriculture, autonomous vehicles, robotics, foundation models. If you've seen it, if you can name it, we have seen it and worked with it in some capacity. So we help these companies manage, curate, annotate, and evaluate their data at scale. We came out of Y Combinator in 2021, and since then have raised about $50 million. We're based in London and San Francisco.
Amazing. And there's lots of things that we want to get into, but I think maybe first off, can we talk about YC? You went through 2021. I saw when you raised your Series B that you were the earliest company from your batch to raise a Series B. You were also very early, relatively on AI. Now we look at YC, it looks like 70 or 80% of companies are AI companies. What was that like back then? How many other AI companies were you going through YC with?
Yeah, we were the fastest AI company in YC to raise a Series B. So yeah, we were. I remember at the time there weren't as many AI companies, definitely not as many as now. And during our seed round, we were competing against a lot of crypto startups and companies in Web3, and that was the milieu at the time. But YC for us was super useful, very helpful. It's on one side, it's a really good network. You have a lot of other YC companies that you can sell to, so it's a warm market that you can start with, especially when you're in the seed stage and kind of ramping up your go-to-market. And then it's really nice mentorship as well. So we still are in touch with our YC partners. We were both first-time founders, my co-founder and I. And we, when you're a first-time founder, you have a lot of silly intuitions about things and a lot of bad ideas. And it's good to just have someone tell you directly, don't do that. That is a bad idea. And that's that kind of candid feedback was super valuable for us in YC. So I recommend, especially first-time founders, to go through if they can. I think the fact that so many companies are AI companies now is just is like a function of most startups are AI companies, and YC just reflects the composition of the startups in the ecosystem.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to talk about you went to YC in San Francisco, but you seem to be headquartered both split across London and San Francisco. Like, what was the pull back to London?
So we started in London originally. My co-founder and I were both living here. We started building a team here, and we moved to San Francisco because that's where most of the market for AI is. So right now we have a split. Most of the product engineering is here, and go-to-market is split between London and San Francisco, and we're seeing a lot of growth in the San Francisco side of things. And I think generally it's like a pretty good setup to have a lot of the tech team in Europe and the go-to-market team in the US. US is normally what you're selling to, especially in the AI ecosystem, but Europe, there's a lot of good talent as well, and there's less competition for that talent compared to San Francisco.
Yeah, we had Martin Mignot from Index Ventures on earlier. They've just released their book about like scaling, growing into the US, and that's exactly the model that he was talking about. You build your product and engineering team here in Europe, where, as you say, it's like cheaper talent but still good quality. But GTM is in the US. I also want to talk about some of your customers. I was having a look on the website, doing research, and you kind of touched on it earlier. You've got customers in every single industry. You're working with some of the most innovative tech companies across the world, people like Synthesia. How are how are you able to get those customers? How is the sales process working that you can get some of the coolest names in the market?
Yeah, I wish I could. I wish I knew. I wish I could articulate it in a succinct, formulaic way. It always feels like some bit of magic. So our go-to-market is split between inbound and outbound. So a lot of the customers just find us. They find us through various channels. We've been around for a bit, so some people just know us. It could be in events, it could be online through one of our blogs or one of our launches. And then we have an outbound team as well. So we know the accounts that are interesting, that are doing interesting AI work. And we have, a very strong BD team that goes and reaches out to these companies, makes them aware of what we're doing, and sets up meetings. But it always feels like some kind of alchemy to get to any particular customer, and it's always like a story or not, or like ping this email, then that email, and then they met you for dinner, and all these things. But it's really just a kind of if you boil it down, it's a split between inbound and outbound.
Yeah. Okay. And how much of the work that you're doing with your clients, because I know it's like a lot of working with their data, cleaning it up, getting it ready. How hands-on is that versus is it the software itself that is able to go in and sort and manage through their data, or is it do they need a bit of hand-holding?
So we provide the tools to go and make sense of their data, to make it ready for AI. And the teams that we work with tend to be quite sophisticated already. So we work mostly with companies that have models in production, so have been doing this for years already. Synthesia is a great example. And so roughly know what they're doing, often are coming from internally built tools over to us for scalability. And so it doesn't require as much handholding. What we're seeing now, especially in the last few years, as AI has really taken off, is that there are a lot more people that are curious about the space and require a little bit more education. We don't serve that part of the market as much, but we're seeing it more and more. And we're always happy to kind of discuss the best practices and what we've seen before, because now we've seen thousands of these different projects. We know what works, what doesn't work, and we are there to advise as well.
I just to jump in there before we had Will Kaplan on earlier today, who was actually one of your growth managers at Encord. Will's now building Tenno. I'm sure you've been in touch. Yeah, we asked Will what would be a good question to ask you, and Will gave us a little anecdote about somewhere around 2017 when you were using GPT then to build either a friend's wedding speech or something. Like, that's kind of early when we think about it. Like, what?
Yeah, that's funny. He picked that. So I was the best man at my college roommate's wedding. We both went to Stanford, so I was in Silicon Valley. This was 2018 or 2019. And I was, I've been in kind of AI machine learning for some time. I was aware of I think it was GPT-2 at the time, the models, and I thought it was quite interesting. So I decided, as a gimmick for the wedding speech, to go in and throw a bunch of wedding speeches as training data for this model, and give it context, and then just output what came out. And of course, at the time, it played really well for laughs, because it was kind of a nonsensical speech. It started off okay, and then it went off the rails really quickly. So it was more for this comical gimmick. But if you do that today, I'm sure most people do that today now, actually, in their their legit speeches. So it just shows the progress that's been made in the technology in really just the last 5 years or so. But yeah, I've kind of been following it for some time, and it's really funny to see it move from a thing that is an amusement to something which is kind of core to people's everyday lives and workflows.
Yeah, and actually both Will and I spoke to Leo in advance of the call, and I said to Leo, who's working with you now, what should we ask Eric? And both Will and Leo said a very similar thing, that you are often making correct predictions about the direction in which AI is moving, right? That you're somebody who is really attuned to the industry, to the technology, and to the way things are going. So we want to ask, what are your predictions for AI? As it's moved from something gimmicky to something that is integral, what's it going to be like in 3 to 5 years, do you think?
Yeah, so it's interesting, because I really feel like that it's almost a fool's game to predict too much in AI, because it moves so quickly, and it's so chaotic and stochastic in nature, especially in the time scale of years. You can maybe predict in weeks, maybe months if you're really lucky. But I think the thing is, what I like to do is just talk to people that are really smart and at the forefront of the space, and learn from them and kind of incorporate that information. And so the latest conversations that my co-founder and I have had in the space with a lot of people that were early in OpenAI or kind of senior in OpenAI, and what are they looking at? What are they thinking about for the future? And something that's come up repeatedly is that the chat GPT moment for physical AI hasn't happened yet, but it will happen. And so a lot of these like, previously senior leaders have been leaving to go start robotics companies or physical AI companies, and having these models actually start to understand the world around it, like the physical space, that will be like a huge step change in how we actually interact with AI. Right now, AI for most people is a chat box where you go in, like, type a thing and talk to it as your therapist. But imagine it's actually in front of you in the real world. That will completely change how we interact with these systems, how we think about them. So I think that's something which I'm, quite interested to see how it develops. And if a lot of smart people are betting on it, then I do think that there's going to be a significant amount of progress in the space in a fairly short amount of time.
What would that change for Encord?
For us, it's just kind of a continuation of our core principles and like the invariants that we have. So the way that we think about this, like, what will be the same no matter what happens, no matter what trajectory of the world it kind of follows. And a few things, like, one is models will continuously get better. So they're the worst that they'll ever be. That's almost always true. The second is the models really need data to be able to do the right thing, to be specified on the right problems. Humans require continuous input of data. Obviously, I'm talking to you now. You're hearing my voice. You're seeing me. That input of data is affecting how you're kind of interpreting what's going on, your own kind of physical model of the world. And so as these models start to occupy not just in online spaces, but in 3D physical space, the data will proliferate very, very rapidly. And so the need for tools like us will continue to grow, because what we do is we try to make sense of all that unstructured multimodal data and make it such that AI systems can actually use it and learn from it. So for us, it's just kind of a continuation of what we think will happen. But of course, like, the manifestation of how it actually inputs the data and the formats and things, those will continuously evolve.
And on that future of this sort of, we've not had our physical AI moment. What does that look like? Is it like the big model providers? They start building their own sort of robotics, or is that a partnership with Figure AI? Like, is this going to see this sort of all these worlds, these like not small, but separate incumbents that are on the fringes of the spaces, kind of coming together to form one super company, or but what does that look like?
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of capital expenditure to get something right, especially because there's hardware is hard and it's expensive. So yeah, companies at the forefront of this, companies like Figure AI, as you mentioned, 1X, Physical Intelligence, but it'll be those companies actually starting to deploy their robotics in the real world and starting to have those use cases actually manifest. But it could be some things that are even subtler than that. So why did OpenAI pay $6.5 billion for Johnny Ive's company? Well, why do you think that they did it? Maybe asking you guys, what's your hypothesis?
To build hardware, right? To get his design skills, to build something out there in the real world, to turn the, like you say, chatbot to something that you can hold in your hand potentially.
Mm.
Yeah, exactly. So it's to get AI into your physical space and to get the data of how people use AI in the physical world. And now there's some rumors that it'll start as like a pen that will kind of record ambient noise, and maybe like as you're writing with it, it'll record like what you're actually writing in your handwriting. But that is the first entry into OpenAI getting into, like, from the chat box into 3D space. And when I saw it, I was like, oh, that makes total sense. They're doing it so that they can get the data for the stuff, and they start to you'll be surrounded by AI, again, not just online, but in your everyday life. And I think that's what's coming.
So you think it's OpenAI that's going to own that whole like physical meets what we've had before?
Well, a lot of people will make a go at it. Obviously, OpenAI, they haven't been tried and tested so much in the hardware space. I think these things have unexpected complications and difficulties that maybe they're factoring in, maybe they're not. I think that they do have a good shot at it because they already have such distribution and the brand name. And Johnny Ive obviously is very formidable as someone that's going to be building a hardware device. But we shouldn't write off Apple. We shouldn't write off Google. We shouldn't write off all of the robotics players that are already in the space, have been working on these things for years. A lot of people entered in the market, similar to the foundation model world, where there's all these providers have tried. Now 3 or 4 have come up on top. We'll see a similar dynamic, I expect. And then 3 or 4, maybe including AI, OpenAI, maybe not, will be the ones that are bringing AI to the everyday world.
And it seems like we're seeing more and more acquisitions by some of these, some of these players that are coming out on top. One of the things that we wanted to talk to you about was Scale AI, the Meta 49% acquisition. Scale AI seemed to be playing in a similar space to Encord in the sense that it's about training data. How closely would you have seen them as a competitor?
Yeah, it's a competitor-ish. They're more on the services side. We're more on the software tooling side. So we have come up against Scale in some deals for the tooling side. I don't think we've actually ever lost a deal to Scale, but obviously they built a very impressive operational machine that is able to mobilize hundreds of thousands of people, maybe even millions of people, for AI training data. So that is extremely impressive. And they've been able to build like a really, really strong company around it. I think the acquisition is, so for us, obviously it's good, right? Because now Alexander Wang is normally not someone that you would want to be competing with, and now he's going to Meta. But I think even more than that, for us, it's just a signal to the market, because what Mark Zuckerberg realized is that, hey, all these labs are like competing for talent and they're competing to pay as much in NVIDIA GPUs as possible. But what if I take the data layer? What if I actually go and try to scoop that away from my competitors? And that was a brilliant move. And now, everyone's kind of turning their head up and like, oh, shoot, the data layer. That's also something that we need to shore up and we need to defend if we want to continue building these models at the frontier. And that's what we do. So for us, it's like a very interesting validation of the work that we've been doing for the last several years.
What does the future there look like if you're in this space? People start knocking on your door. Are you going to answer it?
It depends who's knocking.
You raised your big Series B last year. How have you been spending that? Has that been kind of bolstering up your US expansion? Has that been just hiring some of the best talent? What have you been spending it on, and how long do you think you have until you're looking to raise again?
We haven't spent the money actually yet. So we haven't touched any of our Series B money. So we've been, I think we've been doing pretty well from a cash perspective. And there's no immediate plans for another raise, but obviously the market is heating up, and we're always thinking opportunistically as well.
Yeah, nice. And how did you find that fundraise? Because I know that I think a lot of the people that backed you were US based. How did you find it kind of pitching to US investors versus European investors? Did you see a big difference in the reaction, the speed, anything like that?
Oh yeah, there's a huge difference. My co-founder actually wrote a blog post back when we did our seed round, where this difference was even more stark, about pitching to US VCs versus pitching to European VCs. So I definitely recommend checking that out. I would say like the difference is in like the where they derive conviction from more than anything. So US VCs, they tend to derive conviction from the team and the vision. And European VCs, they derive conviction from the market and the metrics. And that was true even at a seed round, where it probably doesn't make sense to be thinking so much about market and metrics. I remember we had some European VCs ask us for like a business plan and like, show us like your financial projections for the next 3 years. And we're like, dude, we're a seed stage company. Like we're not going to do that. And it's a lot of the DNA of ex private equity people, ex investment bankers, and they just don't have that mentality of what it takes to grow a big tech company. So we had a lot more success with the American VCs. both in the seed round and in the Series B. But as we continue to grow and as you get into growth stage, they kind of converge and it just becomes more of a metric driven decision anyway. So I expect in Series C, it'll kind of be the same.
Yeah. And actually that mirrors what Martin was saying, or what Index say in their book, that the risk appetite in Europe, especially at seed, is so much lower.
I find that weird, right? Because obviously at growth stage, yes, it's going to be like very, very, very statistical and metrics driven, right? You can be good at maths, you can model it all out. Obviously there's a lot more to it than that, but it plays a big part in it. The seed stage, surely, like if you're not moving quick, surely you're just behind. Like surely you're missing out on everything.
Yeah. And I think that's sort of why so few European VCs have been successful in the US.
Because they just can't keep up.
They just can't keep up.
And it comes from like, who are they actually hiring? Who are the people in the fund? There are people that were working at, I don't know, Goldman, or they're working at a private equity fund. So their mental model of the world is, let me put this in a spreadsheet. So even if you put them in front of a seed stage company, they wouldn't know what to do, how to evaluate it. And the American VC ecosystem is just much more mature. It's been around like many more cycles and has seen what has worked and what hasn't. And it also hires a lot more from operators and startups. So people kind of know how the sausage is made, and they can use that in like properly, thinking about, what companies are going to work and which aren't.
Yeah, I've heard that from VC partners who are ex-founders in Europe, that they're trying to actively hire more ex-operators, ex-founders, as opposed to the ex-consultants, ex-BCG, ex-Goldman. Eric, we're kind of out of time, but I'd like to ask one final question. What do you think the UK and Europe needs, or UK and European tech needs, to take it to the next level?
Right. So I think the foundational ingredients of a tech ecosystem are talent, capital, and market appetite. And the thing that Europe and the UK do really, really well is they have an excellent talent pool. So there's great universities here. There's a lot of smart people flocking to Paris and to London. Really, really good AI engineers, AI researchers, software engineers, et cetera. So the talent pool is there. That's done. And the capital is also, it's catching up, right? A lot of the Americans have come into Europe. They're lighting fires under the old European VCs, and we're starting to see the shifts in the dynamics of this kind of European and American VC dichotomy. I think the thing that really needs to catch up is actually the market and the kind of procurement culture, because here it's just way too slow, way too risk averse, versus selling into the US. Like you're like, oh, AI, that's cool. Let me try it. And they're much more willing to experiment and to move quickly. And that's why a lot of companies, they start building their teams here and then they move to the US, us included, because that's where you can sell. So until that kind of procurement culture has adapted, I think the US will be a magnet for a lot of companies, even if they're founded in Europe or elsewhere.
Yeah, interesting. That's not something we hear that often, actually. We always hear capital, but those market dynamics are really interesting. Thank you, Eric, so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure to have you. But yeah, let's stay in touch and best of luck with building anything. And if you've got announcements, news, you know where to come.
Thank you, Eric.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Have a good one.
Cheers, man.
Thanks.
Bye.